Hi guys, it's Sean, DJ Omega. I'm going to start part 3. I'm going to go back just a little bit because I missed out on a subject that's very, very important to me. And that is my great-grandfather Ray. A lot of people that really know me knows my granddad was like the greatest man in the world. You know, my great-granddad, I call him that, but actually he's my great-grandmother's second husband, and he couldn't have any children of his own. And he raised me as I was his own. So it means a whole lot to me in order to be thankful that I was raised by him. But let's go on into part 3. And what I want to tell you is April 23rd, 1993, he left this world. He died in Bethesda North Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio. He had chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, better known as COPD, which is caused by smoking. But he actually worked in a grocery store where he had many chemicals that he would mix together as a butcher, and it damaged his lungs so bad that he got emphysema and stuff. My great-granddad never smoked. He was a devout Christian, and I believe wholeheartedly if any man is in heaven, he is. And I want to see him again one day. So, needless to say, Stephanie was born in October of 1992, and great-grandpa Ray was there for the delivery. And he also was there the next day, and I have a picture of him, her, and me. So the nice thing about this is I've got a picture of 5 generations in one room. That would be me, him, and his daughter, and my daughter. That would be his great-great-granddaughter, and my mom was also there. It was so exciting. But she was 6 months old when we lost him, and I remember the call like it was yesterday. I got a call from my aunt, who was another foster child, and she called and said, he's doing bad and that, we need to hurry. I lived in Dayton, Ohio, which was about an hour away. Actually, he was in Wilmington, Ohio. I'm sorry. He was at Clinton Memorial Hospital. I don't want to get this wrong, but I remember I went out on the porch. When I lived in Dayton, Ohio, I lived between South Dixie and Southern Boulevard. Beautiful Baroness knows where I lived. Well, I went out on the porch and I stood there, and it was just a really, really clear night. Just beautiful. It's kind of chilly for Ohio, but the sky was crystal clear. You could see every star that was in the sky. And all of a sudden, I said, he's gone. He's already gone. So my ex-wife was in the house getting the baby ready, Stephanie. And we got in the car and we started heading that way. And we didn't speed or anything because we had the baby in the car. But I hurried to get there. Took about 45 minutes or an hour to get there. And I got to the desk and I asked about him, and the nurse told me he's already passed. And I asked if I could go in and see him, and they said yes, that wouldn't be a problem. And I said, do you mind telling me how long you've been gone? And they told me about an hour and 15 minutes. So, pretty much he passed away while I was standing on that porch. I knew that he was gone. We had such a relationship. It was just such a powerful thing. It hurts me to talk about it. It hurts my heart because he was everything to me, my best friend. I no longer had that. And all these years when I was a kid having problems and anxiety, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to me? When my grandpa died. Well, we'll go into that too. So, thank you guys for listening to me and watching this. It really means a lot. Well, I'm married, and I had told Grandpa, I gave him permission. I said, go on and be with great-grandma. I told him, I said, I'm okay. I asked him, I said, do you know who I am? And he said, yeah, you're Sean Helton. I said, yeah, I am. His oxygen level was so low. When you go to the hospital, they have lines painted on the wall. Red goes to the emergency room, blue goes to x-ray, yellow goes to the front desk, whatever. Well, they had the lines painted on the wall, and my grandpa thought that they had an RV parked out in the hallway. That's how low his oxygen level was. So he wasn't really coherent. He'd wet himself in the wheelchair. He was just degraded, My great-grandpa wasn't like that. My grandpa was 83 years old, and he mowed his own grass until just a few months before he died. So, he never gave up. I would watch when he would walk to the mailbox, which was a little bit far away. He'd walk outside, and he'd come back in. He was just as blue as my shirt. He had such a hard time. He was winded just from walking out there and coming back from the mailbox. So when you guys tell me quit smoking, trust me, I know the dangers. And I know what smoking does to you because I watched it he'd had COPD for 25 years. I know what it does to a person. I watched him die. So, please, don't get on me for smoking. I'm stressed out here on the street, and it helps me to de-stress. But, so, shortly after my grandpa died, I went to my aunt's house, my aunt and uncle, who was another relative that I'd always seen as they're my family. They were foster kids of my grandparents. But they always said if anything ever happened to Grandpa, they would take me in. But my aunt had a nervous breakdown. She gave me all my children's pictures back that I ever sent her. And she gave me my pictures of me when I was in grade school and, in school myself. And she told me that I stayed too long and that she didn't want me to come back to their home. I was absolutely devastated. I was devastated, mind you, devastated. I saw these people as more family than my own blood. Shortly after Kathy, my ex-wife, and me, we moved. And I lived in Bellbrook, Ohio, which is close to Kettering and Dayton. And I got a call from my mother. And I got a call from my oldest aunt. And they had both told me that my uncle had molested my cousin's daughter, which was his granddaughter. This man I'd spent the night with. I'd been there my whole life. He was a role model to me. And he was a Christian. He went to my granddad's church. Everything that my granddad had went in his will to them. The only stipulation in the will is if I was ever in trouble, that they would take care of me, they would help me. Okay, Grandpa didn't leave me anything in his will but his car. And I got that. But there came a time that I needed a motor for that car, and they weren't there for me. They didn't do what my grandpa wanted. But my uncle was arrested, charged, and spent time, was convicted by a member of the jury, a member of his peers. And he did 18 months in prison, in an Ohio prison, and spent the entire inheritance that they got from my great-grandfather. That hurts me to this day. I may have not been old enough. I may have not been wise enough to handle that kind of money at that age. But my kids would have went through college. I would have done something much better with it than spend it on lawyers. You know, yeah, they gave some to the church. They sold the house. There was a pole barn on the back lot that was supposed to go to my uncle. He never got it. So, I had every right in the world to have the anxiety that I did as a kid, because guess what? Had this happened 4 years sooner, what if they weren't there for me? It's a scary thought, huh? I hope that I'm not offending anybody. I'm not putting any names out there. I'm not calling anybody a pedophile, which he is. He's a registered sex offender. He's still alive. His daughter is still my friend. I love her. She's my cousin, even though we're not blood related. I love her. Well, after that, basically, the year 1999, 2000, Kathy and I, my ex, we divorced. It's over. May the force be with you. Well, you hear how it ended, you know, she TPO, CPO. Well, I moved on and I got off drugs and I moved in with the woman that I met at that time. Her name was Carol. She was a sweet lady. She was 18 years older than me. She had 2 open heart surgeries. She was diabetic, high cholesterol, COPD, everything that could be wrong with somebody she had. We were together almost 10 years. That was how long my marriage lasted. And there was a lot of rocky times with Carol, but she was my first soulmate. I've had 2 of them in my life. Everybody says I'm lucky to have one. So, you know, I lived in Cincinnati, and one morning I woke up and it was October 17th, 2009. I woke up to Carol passed away on my couch. It was the hardest thing that I ever went through. Basically, I buried her. I paid for embalming. I paid for the casket. I paid for everything. She's buried close to my great-grandparents in Phillip. God rest her soul. Carol was a wonderful person. And while we were together, we had a radio station online. And she was DJ Shy Baby was her name. And I was DJ Omega. That's how I got my name. So anybody that wants to know, DJ Omega was my name online on my radio station. And, we had a lot of fun doing that. We did online gaming. Carol liked to play The Sims online, and she liked to play just the regular Sims and all the expansion packs. I myself played Guild Wars, was the role-playing game that I played, and I liked to DJ and play music for everybody while we were playing. So that's how that worked out. That's how I got my name. But Carol passed away in 2009. At that point, I had was my Social Security and stuff like that, and I couldn't live in the place that I was at anymore. It just was run down, and I wasn't taking care of myself. So my family came and got me, my blood family. Not my foster family that I thought was my real family, but my aunt up in Zanesville, Ohio. I stayed with my cousin Betty, and I dreamed that if I could get my child support lowered, that I wanted to come to Florida. I wanted to come here so bad, guys. So bad that I couldn't stand it. Well, in 2010, I had the opportunity to come here once I got my Social Security and a little bit of the back pay. I came down to visit my brother in Florida. He lived in Northport, and he still does. Just got off the phone with him. But I have never felt more at home than I did when I was here in Florida. So I made it my goal a year later so that I was going to come down here no matter what I had to do in Ohio. I was leaving. There was nothing there for me anymore. I mean, my kids were there, but they weren't talking to me. So eventually, I think it was February 2nd, 2013, I got my Social Security, and I had drove down to Kentucky. My aunt lives in Whitley City, and I stayed with her for a week or so, and I decided I'm going to Florida. So I took another person that was in Kentucky, excuse me, and he came with me. So we decided we were coming. He had Social Security, I did. We'd put our checks together and everything would be hunky-dory. Well, we get down here with nothing but the stuff in the car that I had at the time, which was a 98 Mitsubishi Eclipse. And we did it. We found a place to rent with no deposit that would accept my pets. I had 2 dogs, which I have tattooed on my chest. There's Trouble and Biscuit. I'll show it to you better sometime. But we moved here, and everything was great. At least I thought so. Well, in the meantime, he was talking to girls back home and other people, and he wasn't happy here. So he left. And I invited another couple down because I thought they would help me out with rent and, stuff like that. And when I did, worst mistake in my life. Drugs were involved with them, and, they never paid anything to live with me. And soon I became evicted. Got my first eviction, which is bad on your record. Well, they moved away. I was evicted. I was paying a lady that actually rented from my same landlord across the street. I was paying her to let me stay in her home. And all of a sudden, the landlord found out I was living there and was trying to evict her. Well, she didn't want to be evicted, so instead of evicting everybody in the house, he moved her to another property, which then he didn't have to evict her. But he had to evict me. the thing that goes with this is if you get mail at a residence here, then what they do is you can fight with the police and say you're a resident. A piece of mail that comes at a house means you're a resident, so you can move right on in, and they have to evict you. So nobody in the state of Florida will ever, ever, ever let you use their address to get any mail, especially a homeless person, because they're afraid of that. So that answers that question. Why am I homeless and don't have a mailbox? Sorry about the motor of that car, it's nasty. Well, eventually they get me out of there, and I go to a house that rents rooms. And oh my God, you rent and you pay to rent just a room, but you share the kitchen and a bathroom and everything else. Worst mistake of my life. You know, you got to get along with a whole bunch of other people. It's just like a big boarding house. So I lived there for, 6 months, and I finally just said, I'm tired of this. Tired of it. So I left there and went to the streets. And at that point, it was 2014, something like that. And I had a friend named Brenda that lived on the streets. And I asked her, where do you stay? And come to find out, she squatted. So basically, it's like you live in an abandoned house. It doesn't have water, doesn't have electricity, but you got a key to the front door, So you just kind of take over the property. Wasn't for sale. The owner wasn't around. So I lived there for almost 2 years. And a lot of bad stuff happened there. My dog got hit. My other dog, I went in the hospital, and I had a stent put in my heart. And the girl that was supposed to be watching her, my beagle, she sold her for $20 to go buy drugs while I was in the hospital. This dog was 14 years old. She was sick. She had lived through parvo. I mean, it's horrible. And that was in the abandoned house. Well, in the abandoned house, I met a gentleman by the name of Mike. And I didn't know how freaky Mike was, but Mike was real freaky, if you know what I mean. So I'm not even going to say what he did but he liked men and women, and he paid people to do things with him. But I met Nikki, and I lived with Mike, and I paid rent. Things were okay, but he's always going out, and I didn't realize what he was doing. But Nikki found out what he was doing because he was trying to hit on her. Well, in the meantime, Nikki was coming over visiting me. She knew Mike, but she started coming over and she wouldn't leave. She was like a pimple on my butt. So me and Nikki were thick as thieves. I mean, we got to the point where we could finish each other's sentences. I mean, it was really an awesome relationship. And we started out just as really, really, really good friends. And at first, when I met her, I really didn't like her, not in that way. So, actually, I invited a friend from Ohio down who had a drug charge up there that I forgot about. But she came down and things happened, and I was gone for a little while, and Nikki was taking care of her, and then all of a sudden the cops caught her and they extradited her back to Ohio. It was just a mess. But once things got straightened out, me and Nikki fell in love, and we were inseparable. So Mike moved out of that house and left me again with the rent and the bills and everything. And all of a sudden, when that happened, I couldn't afford it anymore. And then me and Nikki were on the street together. Boy, let me tell you how hard it is to try and take care of a woman on the streets. I mean, it's nasty. It's filthy. It's everybody all the time are coming around and they're wanting to buy her. They're wanting to pay her for sex. It's horrible, horrible. The people that live around you, you can't trust nobody. Not if you got a woman. So, but I trusted her. She was my ride or die, guys. And I'm going to go into her actually in the next video, but we're going to go ahead and try to conclude this one because this is number 3 for today. And these are like 30 minutes long is how long I'm trying to make them. I don't want to make it too long, but I don't want it to be too short. I want to go through lots of time frames here so that you guys can get to know me. And then I'm going to go into the homeless stage where I'm by myself with nobody. You have no idea how lonely it gets out here. None. I am in any way, shape, or form. I'm not looking for a relationship. I don't want another girlfriend. I don't want nothing. It's got to be me. I cannot bury another person. It's so hard for me to get close to anybody, and now you can understand why. I've never explained this fully to anybody in my entire life, and thank you so much for just listening. You know, I'm trying to be as honest and transparent as I can. It's so important that I put this out there. I've always wanted to write a book. I can't write. I'm not smart enough. But you know what? I can do this. I can tell you my life story. It's hard. It is so hard to put out there. You know, when I was a kid, I was so bullied and called nasty names. But it's made me the person that I am. It's made me strong. It's made me humble. It's made me honest. I don't steal. This is so hard, guys. I hope that you're enjoying it. And I hope that, you know, maybe through my mistakes, somebody else doesn't make the same ones. So, it's right at almost 29 minutes. So, thank you all for listening, and be looking forward to part 4. Thank you.